What's up YouTube, JL Fulks here and welcome back to the channel. Well, it's that time of year again and we're getting ready to close out another year. 2024 has been a great year. I've bought and sold a lot of guitars in this year and some of them I've let go for better things. And I've pretty much got all my guitars narrowed down to like my primary guitars that I use to make a living day to day here in Nashville, Tennessee. So 2025 is getting ready to be a pretty big year of music for me. My business on Fiverr has grown tremendously. I think I'm at like 143 reviews, 5-star reviews right now. So the orders have been coming in, and I do all of those orders out of my studio apartment here in Nashville. And then also I've got some new music coming out and going to be playing a lot more shows around town with a band, and then also solo as well. So what better way to make some content than make a video of my full guitar collection that I use on a day-to-day basis going into 2025. Now, I've bought and sold a lot of guitars over the years, and I've pretty much got all my guitars dialed in now and narrowed down to the ones that I specifically use. I mean, I'm always going to grow my collection and stuff, but at this point I'm thinking more about like guitar amps and pedals and different things for the studio besides guitars. So I've pretty much got all the guitars that I've ever dreamed of. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this and break down all of my guitars. Alright, so first guitar in the lineup, and I'm not going in any particular order, I'm just kind of going in the order of least important to most important and most sentimental, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, so the first guitar here, this is actually a bass, and this is a Fender Mexican precision bass. And basically the reason I bought this guitar was so that I didn't have to pay a bass player to play sessions for me, unless I really needed a good bass player, because I could play bass pretty well, enough to get by, and for country and simple stuff, I can most of the time cover bass. So this guitar has made me a lot of money just being able to do the sessions myself instead of hiring out a bass player. This actually, I got it from a guy that works for Heritage Guitars. A friend of his was selling this bass, and I guess he told me that it was like in a punk rock band for many years and had been on the road and played a bunch of shows. But this thing is great, you know. This is just a simple bass guitar, enough to kind of knock out some demos and save a little money when it comes to sessions and just doing it myself. I've really started to like the bass guitar a lot because it's kind of a learning curve, you know. You're kind of like, it's more of a feel thing, like pocket, you know, walking in with the drums than like guitar. So I really enjoy playing bass, and when I'm able to do it like on a session, I usually have a lot of fun doing it. But anyways, this is what this guitar sounds like. All right, next we have my Telecaster Type S, I believe. Basically, this is my main Telecaster. I wanted to have a Telecaster for basically sessions. This is a studio-only guitar, basically. I don't really like playing a Tele live. I think it's just too thin of a sound for me. But I really gravitated towards this Telecaster. I bought it from Carter Vintage Guitars, and this one is just great for like fitting in a mix, like getting some of those Telecaster sounds and doing the Telecaster bends. Like it really serves that purpose, like for producing like country songs and stuff. And I mean, it's great for blues and rock too. Sometimes like I get better tones out of the Telecaster for rock than I do from like the Les Paul or my other guitars like the PRS. But this has like vintage style pickups, and they're very bright, which I like. And the neck is also a little bit different too. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know how to describe the neck. It's more of like what I like in a Telecaster neck. It's not like your traditional Telecaster neck. But this guitar serves its purpose for sure. And it was quite inexpensive. So Telecaster Guitars is a company, and it's one guy up in Ithaca, New York. And he makes Telecasters. He makes like Stratocaster copies. but they're really good boutique telecasters, so I definitely suggest checking them out. I really like this guitar, and yeah, I'll show you what it sounds like. All right, next we got my J45, and I've had this guitar a long time, probably since, I believe it's a 2012, so I've had it over 10 years, 14 years now. Pretty crazy. This has been on a lot of my recordings, a lot of my own music, just about every recording that has acoustic that I've done of my own is basically has the J45 on it. This is a great workhorse guitar. I definitely suggest to anybody out there getting a J45 because they're great to do gigs with. They sound amazing on recordings. They're just a legendary acoustic guitar, and this one, out of pretty much all my guitars, has probably been the most reliable. I never have to get it set up. I actually got it set up for the first time like a year ago, and you didn't really have to do much. This guitar is like just always like kind of stayed right where it needed to be, and didn't really need any fine tuning. But one thing I don't like about this guitar is the actual pickup that comes in it. I mean, it's okay, it's not bad, but it's not the best sounding direct pickup. It's very direct sounding, like very much like a DI. But I mean, it gets the job done. I've never had any problems with it. The battery doesn't die that often. I've only changed the battery, I think, in this guitar like a few times over the years, like not much. But just a great workhorse guitar, great for recordings. It's starting to get a little wear on it now. I've had it for a while. I wrote a lot of good songs with this guitar. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears on it. But anyways, this is what this guitar sounds like. All right, next we got my Heritage H535 Ruby, and this actually was a custom order from Heritage, and it was in my music video, The Way She Makes Me Feel. Kind of wrote that song about this guitar, and we filmed the music video in the original Gibson factory, which is now the Heritage Guitar Factory, and we got the last footage ever of the factory before it got renovated, which is pretty cool. But this is a very sentimental guitar for me. I played in my blues trio with this guitar down in South Florida. Opened up for a lot of big blues acts with this thing. Just a very great, reliable guitar. It's got a Seth Lover pickup and a 59, I believe. I think the 59 is in the bridge. I'm not too sure. But great guitar. There's some custom binding, custom logo on it from when I ordered it from Heritage. But this guitar came directly from Heritage and was a fun project, and I still use it all the time. It's a great sounding guitar. It's got a great neck, very fat. It's almost like comparable to the custom core models of H535 that they're making now. but I would argue that this one probably sounds better and plays better. But just a really great guitar. I use it all the time. Great blues guitar, great for rock, jazz, just about everything. But yeah, anyways, this is what this one sounds like. All right, so next up we have my Martin HD28, and this is just an awesome guitar. This is actually my newest guitar. I traded in my Gibson 61 reissue SG for this guitar and some change. I was playing my SG a lot at the time, but ended up selling it because I got another guitar, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that sounds even better. But I've always wanted a Martin D28, and I went into Guitar Center and played this HD28 and was just blown away by like the low end response from this guitar. Just big and like the sound I've been looking for from a Martin. And it plays really, really well. It's got a great neck on it. It's nice and thin, which I like a lot. And this is my primary guitar for playing like solo gigs in Nashville, and for playing like corporate events and stuff like that too. It's a very reliable guitar. It looks beautiful. The rosewood on it is just incredible too. But definitely probably, it's hard with my acoustics, but this may be my favorite acoustic that I own. I ended up getting a LR Baggs pickup installed. It's pretty good. It's not the best, but probably will end up getting a better pickup at some point. But it does the job for now. It's definitely a better sounding pickup than some of my other acoustic guitars, like the J45. I like this pickup that I put in it a lot more than that. But anyways, this is a great guitar, and this is what it sounds like. All right, next we have my Stratocaster, which is a 1982 62 reissue JV Strat. And this guitar was a really good find for me. I actually was wanting to buy a Strat for a while, and I've had this guitar like, God, probably close to 7 or 8 years now. And I really want a good Strat. I've owned a bunch of Strats over the years and not many good ones. And I went to actually Matt Schofield and asked him like, what kind of Strat should I buy? This was my budget, and he suggested one of these. And I ended up buying this guitar from a guy on Reverb that was in Japan. And so this guitar came straight from Japan. If you don't know what a JV Strat is, it's a Japanese Stratocaster. So it was made in Japan, and but it's actually a Fender. And in the 80s, they were making them better there than in America at the time, and they made some of the greatest like Strats ever. And this is a really great Strat. Sounds awesome. But I kind of took a gamble with this guitar, ordering it overseas off Reverb, but I was really blown away when I got it. I ended up buying it originally for like $1,700, and recently, about like a year or so ago, I took it to Carter Vintage Guitars to get everything authenticated and get it set up because it hadn't been set up in a while. and they were trying to buy it off me for like $3,000 to $4,000. So it's actually gone up in price, and they were really trying to buy it off me. But I didn't want to let it go. This is my Strat, and I love the way it looks. I've always wanted like a vintage Strat and sunburst like this, and this is as close as my budget will allow me to getting the real thing, and it's pretty much the real thing. But anyways, this is what it sounds like. All right, so next we have my Gibson ES335, and this is probably the most sentimental guitar out of all my guitars in my collection. I used to use this guitar all the time. I used to tour with it when I was like 23. Ended up opening up for Johnny Winter with this guitar, and he really liked my playing and wanted to meet me, so I went backstage and he signed my guitar, got a picture with him. Awesome experience. I toured in the Brandon Santini band with this guitar when I was in my early 20s. Opened up for a lot of big blues acts and did a lot of blues on Beale Street in Memphis with this guitar as well. This is a really good Gibson ES335. I originally bought it from a Guitar Center in South Carolina. I had a little bit of inheritance money, and it was like my only chance to buy like a good guitar, like my first good guitar. And I went into Guitar Center, and this was like the nicest one they had at the time. And I was like, I want that guitar because I was getting ready to start music school with Berklee Online and stuff like that. And this guitar served that purpose. I did a lot of music education with this guitar as well, learned a lot of jazz with it. But this is a really great sounding ES335. I took it to Carter Vintage Guitars a couple years ago. And they were telling me that this is a really great ES335, like one of the good ones. I believe it's a 2008 model. So I've had it since then. So it's been a long time I've had this guitar, and it's been on the road with me a lot. I mean, the case is pretty wore out on the guitar. I got to get a new case for it. But it's just a really great sounding guitar. It just really gives the authentic ES335 sound that I don't get from my Heritage. It's got that Gibson ES335 sound, and it's just great for blues and just about everything. I mean, you can play rock on this thing too. But anyways, that's I call this one Betty because I named it after my grandmother. Anyways, this is what this one sounds like. All right, next we got one of my favorite guitars ever, my Heritage Custom Core H150. This was like an impulse buy. I had been wanting a Custom Core H150 for a while, and I walked into Wolf Guitars, and I just had to have it. I traded a couple guitars I wasn't really playing, and I ended up buying this thing, and I'm so glad I did. It's just got an incredible finish on it. The neck is amazing. The only downside I would say to this guitar is the pickups. And they're not bad, but they're not my favorite pickups either. I mean, I don't know. Some days I think they sound great. Some days I feel like they're just a little too weak. And I have compared this guitar to a Gibson R9, which this is basically a copy of, but made in the original Gibson factory in Kalamazoo, Michigan. But, I compared it to an R9, and the R9 pickups were a little bit hotter than this guitar. It sounded like this guitar had some more mids. I may switch them out. I don't know. I just bought another amp. I ordered one, and I'm not going to say what it is yet, but I'm looking forward to hearing what this guitar sounds like through that amp, because I think my Rev G20, being a 20-watt amp, it's not quite the wattage for like the good Les Paul sound. But we'll see. I don't know. It's definitely one of my favorite guitars. Definitely my favorite guitar to play live, like with my trio or with like a blues rock band. Just a great guitar in general. The weight is great on it. Definitely one of my favorites. The finish is amazing. I think these finishes from Heritage are even better than like the Gibson Custom Shop. And yeah. But anyways, this is what it sounds like. All right, next we got one of the coolest guitars that I own. This is a 1971 Martin D18. And funny story behind this guitar. I was going through a breakup, and my girlfriend at the time that I was living with, she kind of hit the road and left a bunch of her furniture and stuff behind. And out of love, I went out and sold it and bought this guitar with it. So that's pretty much how I came into possession with this guitar. I walked into Carter Vintage Guitars and wanted to buy like a regular, like new Martin D18. And I saw this one, and it was the same price as a new one. And I was like, well, I'll take the vintage one over the new one. And I'm so glad I did, because this guitar sounds absolutely incredible. It may be my favorite acoustic. I'm not too sure, but it's definitely vintage. It's got a lot of wear on it, and a lot of it is already put on from me, because I played a lot of shows last year with this guitar, a lot in downtown Nashville with it. It's got a great pickup. I'm not sure what kind of pickup it is, but Carter Vintage Guitars actually installed it, and it's definitely one of the better acoustic pickups that I have. It's got a V-neck on this guitar, which I really like too on an acoustic, but just a really cool acoustic guitar. I've always wanted a vintage Martin, and early 70s was the best I could do with my budget, and I'm happy with the purchase. So all right, lastly, we have my PRS DGT. And I have to say, this is probably the best electric guitar that I own. So my whole PRS journey started during COVID. I ended up buying a PRS CE24. I wanted something a little more modern sounding, and I'd always wanted a PRS. I just love the way they look. I love the finishes on them. And I ended up falling in love with that PRS CE24, and I made a ton of videos with that guitar during COVID in 2020 and 2021. But the only thing I didn't like about that guitar was the neck. I liked the bolt-on, but it was just too thin of a neck for me, and I wanted a fatter neck. And I ended up trading that guitar in for a custom 22, which I played for like a year or so, and I really liked that guitar, but it was a little muddy in the neck position, and I wasn't a huge fan of the pickups. So I ended up trading in that guitar for a new PRS DGT, and I believe this is a 2023. Yeah, I got it last year, so 2023 PRS DGT Gold Top. And I've always liked the David Grissom model. It's a little more vintage sounding. It's got a fatter neck on it. I really love the size of the neck on this guitar and the fat frets as well. I mean, it's just great for bending notes, and I mean, you can do everything on this guitar. And then the pickups are also really high-end and amazing sounding. They have the push-pull option here, so you can turn them into single coils, which they sound great as well. It's got the tremolo. Just a great sounding guitar, great playing guitar. Definitely one of the better guitars that I own for sure. Probably my best guitar. But the weight on this guitar is actually pretty reasonable too. It's got a great weight on it. It's about the same weight. It weighs about the same as my Heritage Custom Core H150. And both of these guitars, they both sound different. This guitar is a little more articulate than my Les Paul, but both different guitars, and I really like this one a lot. It's definitely one of my go-tos for sessions. I probably go to this guitar the most for sessions, especially since it has the push-pull option. So there's a lot of different tones you can get out of this guitar. But anyways, this is what my PRS DGT sounds like.